Understood. White heavy checkmark. I'll now write section 1 as a flowing narration script, faceless video style. Word count target, 570 plus words, to give you richness and depth. No headings, no scene notes, just continuous storytelling in first-person voice. Polished, emotional, engaging, no fluff, no repetition. Here's section 1, almost equal to 580 words. My life looked perfect from the outside. A beautiful home, a successful husband, a career that kept me busy but not overwhelmed, and evenings that, at least on social media, sparkled with happiness. Friends envied me, telling me I was lucky to have a man so driven, so charming, so admired by everyone who knew him. They saw the dinners, the smiles, the vacations we occasionally managed to take, and believed we had built a love story worth envying. What no one saw was the silence that followed those dinners, the hurried excuses during vacations, and the subtle way his eyes often looked past me instead of at me. Through all of it, there was only one creature who noticed every change, my dog. He was loyal in a way that words could never describe. He followed me from room to room, his tail wagging when I smiled, his eyes watching me closely when I pretended I was fine but wasn't. He had always been protective, but over time, I realized his instincts were sharper than mine. He noticed things before I did, things I tried too hard to ignore. In the early years of marriage, my husband and I were inseparable. He used to leave me notes on the fridge, kiss my forehead before leaving for work, and spend weekends planning little adventures just for us. I thought that love like that lasted forever. But slowly, those gestures faded. The notes disappeared, replaced with quick texts about meetings. The kisses grew hurried, often missed altogether. Weekends were consumed by business calls or conferences, at least according to him. I told myself this was normal, that every marriage shifted once responsibilities piled up. I wanted to believe nothing had really changed, even when my heart whispered otherwise. It was my dog who refused to accept the lie. Every night when my husband returned home late, claiming deadlines and urgent clients, the dog would wait by the door. But instead of wagging his tail with joy, he would stiffen, his ears flat, a low growl rumbling from his chest. At first, I laughed it off, teasing him about being overprotective. But when it happened again and again, when the growl deepened instead of fading, I felt the first flicker of unease. Why was he reacting this way to the man he had adored once? There were small cracks, too subtle to name but impossible to ignore. My husband no longer asked about my day. Conversations felt like obligations, his attention drifting quickly to his phone. I would cook his favorite meals, but he barely noticed, sometimes pushing the plate away with the excuse that he had already eaten with colleagues. Nights that used to end with warmth now ended with his back turned, the glow of his phone lighting the darkness between us. I tried to convince myself that this was just a phase, that work pressure had swallowed the man I loved, and in time, he would return to me. But the dog wouldn't let me live in denial. He watched my husband with sharp eyes, tail rigid, body tense, and every time I brushed his fur to calm him, I realized he was trying to calm me instead. The irony is that I thought I was the one protecting my marriage, shielding it from suspicion or unnecessary conflict. I told myself I was patient, loyal, understanding. Yet all along, it was my dog who was protecting me. Protecting me from truths I wasn't ready to face, truths I was too afraid to even whisper. At that time, I didn't understand the weight of his warnings. I thought he was simply reacting, being moody, being a dog. But I was wrong. He saw what I couldn't. He knew before I did. And one day, I would discover just how right he had. The changes were small at first, subtle enough that I doubted myself whenever I noticed them. He began carrying his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom, something he had never done before. The screen was always turned down on the table, locked tight with a passcode I didn't know anymore. I told myself it was just privacy, a habit, but every time I heard the faint buzz of a notification and saw the quick way he grabbed it, a knot tightened in my stomach. Then there were the late nights. What had once been an occasional inconvenience became routine. He would text me that he was stuck with clients, and I would wait at the dinner table until the food went cold, until exhaustion won over hope. When he finally walked through the door, there was always an excuse ready, a project crisis, an emergency call, an opportunity too important to miss. He would smile as if expecting me to understand, kiss my forehead quickly, and disappear into the shower. But there was something different about him when he came home late. His shirt smelled faintly of perfume I didn't wear, his hair carried the lingering scent of hotel soap, and sometimes, no matter how quickly he scrubbed away, a trace of lipstick on his collar remained. I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe that I was imagining it all, that stress was playing tricks on my mind. But my dog wasn't fooled. He had grown restless, more watchful than ever. Whenever my husband stepped through the door, the dog would plant himself firmly between us, tail low, a low growl vibrating from his chest. At first, I scolded him, embarrassed by his hostility. But as the days passed, I realized he was mirroring the unease I felt but refused to admit. One evening, as I folded laundry, the dog began pawing at my husband's jacket tossed carelessly on the chair. He wouldn't stop tugging at it, growling under his breath. Irritated, I pulled it from his mouth, only to freeze when I noticed a faint smudge on the collar lipstick, a shade I didn't own. My heart skipped, my hands trembled, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. I stared at it, my mind scrambling for excuses. Maybe a colleague hugged him in greeting, maybe he brushed against someone by accident. I clung to any explanation that didn't involve betrayal. That night, I waited for him to come home, rehearsing how I might bring it up. But when I finally asked about the stain, he barely looked up from his phone. "Don't be ridiculous," he said, laughing lightly, as if my concern was absurd. He leaned over, kissed me quickly, and told me I was overthinking. His words were smooth, his tone steady, but his eyes didn't meet mine. Something inside me cracked, but I swallowed the ache and let it go. At least, that's what I told myself. After that, I began noticing patterns. He would tell me he was working late, but when I called the office, no one answered. Receipts appeared in his pockets from places he had no reason to be. His calendar never matched his stories. I kept a mental record of each inconsistency, each lie wrapped in charm, and though I said nothing, my silence was heavy with suspicion. And through it all, the dog never stopped warning me. He followed my husband with narrowed eyes, growled when he got too close, and pressed against my side whenever I was left alone in bed. The more I ignored the signs, the more desperate he seemed to become, as though he knew time was running out for me to face the truth. I was still clinging to the life I thought I had, still terrified of what I might lose if I admitted what was happening. But the night it all broke open began like so many others. He told me he had to leave for a business trip, a sudden meeting with clients in another city. He packed quickly, kissed me on the cheek, and promised to call once he landed. His tone was calm, practiced, too smooth. I nodded, pretending to believe, but inside I felt a heaviness I could no longer explain away. My dog sat by the door, ears pricked, watching him leave with a low whine that cut straight through me. When the car pulled out of the driveway, the dog didn't retreat like usual. He paced, restless, running back and forth to the window, then to me, as if urging me to do something. For the first time, I listened. I picked up my phone, opened the location tracker we had both once installed for safety, and watched the screen. My heart thudded when I saw the little dot not moving toward the airport, but toward a hotel on the other side of town. My hands shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. Part of me wanted to close it, to pretend I hadn't seen it, but the dog barked sharply, jolting me into action. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys, and he leapt into the car beside me, as though he had been waiting for this moment all along. The drive was a blur of headlights and pounding heartbeat. Every second, I told myself I was wrong, that there had to be a logical explanation. But when I pulled into the hotel parking lot and saw his car sitting there, gleaming under the dim lights, denial shattered. I sat frozen, gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles whitened, staring at the proof I could no longer ignore. My dog pressed his head against my arm, his warm weight anchoring me in the storm of emotions threatening to tear me apart. I waited, numb, until the lobby doors opened. And then I saw him. My husband walked out, not alone, but with a woman at his side. She was laughing, her hand curled possessively around his arm. He looked younger somehow, lighter, as if he had shed the weight of responsibility the moment he left me behind. They stopped near his car, and I watched, helpless, as he leaned down and kissed her with the tenderness that had once belonged to me. The world tilted. My chest tightened until I couldn't breathe. The dog barked, loud and furious, his body lunging toward the windshield. Both of them turned at the sound, their eyes locking on me. My husband's face drained of color. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, the silence between us more deafening than any scream. He stammered something, letting go of the woman's hand, his steps hesitant as he approached my car. But the damage was done. There was nothing left to explain. He opened the door, his voice low, pleading, but the words didn't reach me. All I could see was the betrayal etched into every line of his face, every lie he had ever told unraveling in an instant. My dog growled, teeth bared, placing himself between us, his protective presence fierce and unwavering. I realized then that my loyal companion had known all along, that he had been trying to shield me from this moment, preparing me for the truth I hadn't wanted to see. Tears blurred my vision, but beneath the heartbreak was clarity. The life I thought I had was gone, shattered by the man who claimed to love me. And yet, in that moment of devastation, I understood one thing with painful certainty: my dog had succeeded where no one else could. He had shown me the truth I was too afraid to uncover myself. The hours after that night blurred into one long ache. I barely remember the drive home, only the silence inside the car and the sound of my dog's steady breathing beside me, as if reminding me I wasn't alone even when my world had collapsed. My husband called again and again, his voice desperate on the voicemail, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What words could heal what I had seen with my own eyes? What apology could undo the kiss, the laughter, the lies stretched across months, maybe longer? When he finally returned home the next day, suitcase in hand and guilt written across his face, I was waiting. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The tears had already drained me dry. I simply asked him why. He stammered through excuses: loneliness, stress, temptation, mistakes. He swore it meant nothing, that he loved me, that he would stop. But the words rang hollow, bouncing off the emptiness he had carved inside me. It wasn't just the act of betrayal that broke me, it was the countless lies, the way he had made me doubt myself, the way he had forced me to choose between my heart and my instincts. And in the end, it was the clarity in my dog's eyes, steady and unwavering, that told me what I needed to do. Leaving was harder than I imagined. Packing up years of shared life, signing papers, telling friends and family, it felt like erasing part of myself. But with every box I carried out, I felt lighter, as though I was peeling away the weight of deception that had held me down. My dog never left my side through any of it. He slept at the foot of my bed when the nights grew too quiet, rested his head on my lap when the loneliness threatened to break me, and wagged his tail with a joy that reminded me life still held pieces worth holding on to. Healing didn't happen overnight. Some days I woke up strong, determined to move forward, and other days I found myself drowning in memories, questioning what I could have done differently. But slowly, the fog lifted. I began to find myself again, the woman I had been before betrayal dimmed her light. I went for long walks with my dog, rediscovered hobbies I had abandoned, and allowed silence to become a comfort instead of a reminder of absence. Each small step forward felt like reclaiming a part of me he could never take away. I realized something important in those months. Love isn't only measured by words or promises. It's measured by presence, loyalty, the quiet ways someone stands by you even when you're broken. My husband had failed me, but my dog had not. He had seen the truth, guarded me from further hurt, and reminded me of my worth when I was at my weakest. His loyalty gave me courage, and in that loyalty, I found the strength to rebuild. I don't know what the future holds. I'm not rushing into new love or chasing validation from anyone else. For now, I am enough, and the companionship of my dog is more healing than any empty apology could ever be. I've learned that betrayal doesn't define me, how I rise from it does. And I am rising, slowly but surely, with my head higher each day. When I look back now, I see the story clearly. Everyone else believed the lies, even I wanted to believe them. But my dog saw through it all. My dog succeeded where no one else could. He gave me the courage to face the truth, and the strength to start again.